Hey guys, welcome. This is FineWineToMe, the wine business podcast. And today we are talking about wine from war and potentially a win for Ukraine. Today I have a guest, Tania Olewska, who is the marketing and communications director of the Ukrainian wine company UK. And we're going to discuss everything or a lot of things about wines of Ukraine and how they actually build their portfolio in the UK at the moment and elsewhere around the world. Hello, Tania. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, Java.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. And you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. We have so many bottles of wine in front of you. I assume
Yeah.
they all Ukrainian wines.
Yeah, that's true. I just wanted to showcase our beautiful labels a little bit, just to take your eye for them, and then probably I will take them out. Okay.
Yeah, sure, cool. I just very briefly, basically, where we first met. I suppose it was at 67 𝐴𝐺 at a Ukrainian trade, and I don't know, what was it? Was it the consumer tasting? It wasn't the consumer tasting. It was
No,
just
no,
for
no. Yeah, it was
just
Agro Trade and Press Tasting, kindly
yeah.
organized by Island Media and 𝐤𝐵𝐺𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐶. So it was a very, very big honor for us to have this prestigious venue, for our first inaugural tasting. Yeah,
Yes,
we
yeah, and
were.
that's where we met, and that's where I tasted quite a lot of wines from your portfolio. And I have to say, honestly, I was so surprised about the quality, and that all the way through the range was exceptional, really. And it not just the products, but actually the labels as well, and the presentation, and everything around them. So I suppose you guys did a very good job about that tasting, and generally about the wines as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And actually, I would like to say that it's very important for companies who want to enter the UK market to make such tastings beforehand, because during this tasting, we had around 13 companies which were represented in the UK. Some winemakers came as well to represent their wines. And because all the British experts came to the tastings, journalists, media, so we had a very good feedback. So they told us these wines are good. These wines should change their label. These wines should use less oak or something like that. So all that information was given to winemakers to improve their production first of all, and then we made like a selection for our wines. So now in our portfolio we don't have all 13 companies, we just have like 6, and we are going to expand to probably 8. Yeah, because it's a bit hard to sell, to have like a very large portfolio.
Yes, I know the feeling. I imported wines before, and I started a small company as well. And obviously, starting up, it always makes sense to start with a few and then build it up from there. But let's just, before we jump into the Ukrainian wine industry, the production and everything, there's loads of things to talk about. I really want to know about you a little bit. How did you end up in wine? What did you do? Where did you do it? Just your
Okay.
story a little bit.
Okay. So I started to deal with wines in 2019. It was like a combination of my passions that I had, traveling and wine tastings. I ended the wine school in Ukraine. It, so, and I just decided to make my own company, which I call Trans Wine Travel. This is the very niche product. So I did traveling via wineries. It was the COVID time, 2020, when everybody was like prohibited to go abroad and no flights. So we started to
Great
travel.
timing, by the way. Great.
Yeah, yeah. So we started to travel Ukraine, and it was an amazing time because, first of all, we made friends. We drank beautiful wines from beautiful people, our Ukrainian winemakers. We really found the hidden gems. We discovered so many things about Ukrainian culture, about Ukrainian food, about food pairing, because we also have oysters farm in Ukraine. So we had local oysters, local wine, and many exciting, I would say, discoveries. Yeah, so that's how I started to deal with wine. And also I visited plenty of wine tastings for trade and press. I started my own blog. I was a journalist, a writer about wine. And then together with my friend, we launched a very cool project, which was called 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐵. I lived in Kyiv, in capital of Ukraine. And I also was a brand ambassador of the restaurant of Kyiv cuisine, modern Kyiv cuisine, which name is 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐫. It's still working and is very popular among Ukrainians. So we launched this blind tastings 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐵, which became very popular. So each week we made a tasting comparing 8 wines from 8 different countries, and people tasted them in blind. At each time there was also a Ukrainian one, so it was really popular.
How did the Ukrainian wines do in the blind tastings generally?
Actually, some of them are really good, so people will never say it was a Ukrainian wine. So I'm sure that blind tastings are the best way to ensure the quality of wine. Because to tell you the truth, in Ukraine, before the war started, not so many people were keen on Ukrainian food and wine. So the restaurant was not so popular. We opened it also during COVID in 2020. And there were just few Ukrainian restaurants, even in Ukraine, even in Kyiv. And people were very skeptical about Ukrainian wines because the Ukrainian industry is not so old. The new wave of Ukrainian winemaking just started in early 2000 and then 2010. So wineries are quite young, I would say, and their wines were quite young. So when people tasted their first vintages, obviously they were not so perfect. And it's very difficult to convince the audience that you changed something, that you improved, and so on. So yeah, and it was like for the last 5 years, Ukrainian winemaking, it made a huge step forward because so many craft wineries appeared, and they started to make a competition to big factories. So big factories started to improve the quality of their production, to make new lines of wines, and craft wineries as well. They felt that competition and they started to study, to learn, to go abroad, to have new experience, and the quality of wines really became better. And really, when the war started, people started to support like native producers more, not as much as we thought and we would like to, but anyway. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, obviously, I'm guessing wartime is different because money is a little bit more scarce, and it must be an awfully difficult time. So people don't really think about drinking quality wines during wartime. But if I can ask, when did you actually move to the UK? Have you been here before, or did you just came quite recently?
Yeah, I came quite recently, already when the war started, so I realized that it was not so safe. And, it was very strange time for all Ukrainians, very scared time, because when the war started, you just lose everything. You lose belief, you lose any job you had, so you don't have anything, and your brain is working, and you try to look for some other opportunities, what you can do. And actually it was a very strong support from all the winemaking industry from abroad. So many wineries from France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, from everywhere, from Germany, they offered accommodation and support to Ukrainians. So many Ukrainians were in the wineries for half a year, how long they needed. I also had some offers from wineries from Burgundy, from Piedmont. But also I realized that I need to work to support myself and my family. And I didn't see like big opportunities there. It would be good just for living, but not for working. And then, I decided to try to come to the UK, and I'm really very, very happy because here the country is amazing, people are amazing, the supporter is amazing. And even when I came here, I didn't know what I should do. Should I like go and work at the university because I live in Cambridge, or what should I do? Or should I continue with wine? But step by step, I started to visit wine tastings in London and Cambridge, wine festivals, and so on. And so,
Yeah, and you are in the UK wine trade officially.
yeah, yeah.
Before we go down on that avenue, I wanted to ask you a little bit of a favor, and you mentioned that you don't really want to talk about too much about the history and everything, but a little bit about how would you compare from the past to the present in terms of the winemaking, how it's changed, and obviously because I'm coming from a country which, although it wasn't part of the Soviet Union, it was part of the Eastern Bloc. And we all know that production there was built on different ideas. And then you mentioned that in the early 2000s is where the Ukrainian wine industry sort of revolutionized itself. So what would you say, what are the main differences? What are I assume quite a lot of differences now from the past?
Oh, I thought you want to talk, you want to know the history of Ukrainian wine since the era before Christ.
Oh no! God, no! That is a long time. We don't have that much time. I do have to go to sleep at some point. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I prepared for that because recently,
Please go ahead, just briefly.
yeah, because recently our colleague, wine influencer and writer, 𝐷𝐸𝐺enia, she published a book in English actually,
Okay.
which is called The History of Ukrainian Winemaking,
Oh
and she
wow.
did a very big job during the war. So she spent like 1 year searching for all the historical facts about Ukrainian winemaking because we knew very little. So in short, I will just tell you really in short that Ukrainian winemaking started in 7th century before Christ because Greeks
Yeah.
were in Crimea, so they planted some vines there. Yeah, and there are real facts of existence of wine industry there. And then, as always, Greeks, Romans, some Ukrainian tribes. So wine culture was present all the time on the territory of Ukraine. Yeah, and then monarchs, as in all Europe. So in all churches, they planted some vines and made wine. And also, I was on excursion in Kiev in one of the ancient churches. So they have these cellars where the wines were stored from all over the world as well. So Ukrainians were making wines for many, many centuries. But and when there was the USSR, so Ukraine was like the biggest supplier of wines to Russia and everywhere, as well as Moldova. But then in 1985, from 1985 to 1989, there was a campaign dedicated to like anti-alcoholic campaign when 70% of all vineyards were just cut off, and it was really awful because when I visited some wineries, they told the story how they tried to save the wines, to save some equipment, some already done wines, so it was really, really bad. Probably all of you know the map of Ukraine, not because of the wines but because of the war. But anyway, now if I'm talking about any region, the majority of people know where it is located. So
Yeah.
the majority of the vineyards in Ukraine, they are in the south of Ukraine. It's Odessa, Mykolaiv, and Kherson and Zaporizhia regions. So these are the officially recognized regions, and also as well as Zakarpattia, which is the west part of Ukraine, bordering with Hungary, Slovakia. So the first of the wineries was in Zakarpattia called 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐸, Chateau 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐸. They started to produce the factory like in 1995. Then the next one was 1998. It was Villa Tinta. So I will show you the wine, the most beautiful Odessa Black, our indigenous grape variety. So 1998, it was Odessa region, Bessarabia, close to Moldova. And then 2003, 2005, also some Odessa wineries. One of them is Colonist wine, which we have like sparkling Bissar here. And then small gap in 2010. So in 2010, many craft family wineries appeared all over Ukraine, in all regions, in central Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, so everywhere. And now they are doing very well. We have around like 100, I would say 50 wineries. Before war, it was officially like 36 hectares of vineyards with the technical grapes. And now they say it's like 26 hectares. So 10 hectares.
26,000 or
1,000, sorry.
yeah.
So 10 hectares less. Yeah, because as you know, the region was occupied for a long time, for 9 months, and they mined the vineyards. They really robbed and burned some wineries. So, and Kherson was very big region for wine industry.
Yeah, it's obviously a tragic story just generally about what happened with the wineries and the vineyards as well in that part of the world. But just wanted to go back to that book. If you send me the actual details about the book, I'll just put it into the show notes below as well. So if anyone's interested, I think it's a good way to approach it. I haven't heard about it either, so I think it's could be an interesting one. But going back to, I don't really want to talk about the war, and I don't really like to talk about the war, but I assume you either. But I just wanted to mention, if there is a silver lining in that whole situation, I suppose it's probably that the Ukrainian wine industry get a little bit more interest around the world. Am I right about this? Did you feel that?
Yeah, actually, it's, like a tricky question, because from one side, as I say, now we don't need any PR as for the country, yes, because everybody knows about us, but probably it's not the best way to know about the country. Yeah, so yes, we have an advantage that at least about Ukraine people know. And our mission is to tell people about Ukrainian wines, because we participate during, for the last year, we took part in different events around England and Scotland. And the first question always was, oh, I didn't know that Ukraine produce any wines. What are your indigenous grape varieties? Where the vineyards are? So people are very curious, and we are grateful for that. And they are open-minded to test our wines. And yes, sure. Many companies, not many, up to 10 companies started to export their production when the war started, because during the first months there was a dry law, so they couldn't sell their production. Then we had problems with our energetic systems because of missiles bombing the energetic system. So the online shops didn't work. They couldn't realize their new products as well. And, there are waves of consumers behaving in Ukraine. So they started to support Ukrainian winemakers, but economy goes down, really. And their purchasing capacity is going down as well. So they need to choose what to buy. So it's really difficult now to sell the wines in Ukraine. But anyway, we are very, very grateful to each restaurant and shop who really supports Ukrainian winemakers and sell the wines. And actually, it was a good start to try to sell the wines abroad. We are selling, there is a brand which is called Wines of Ukraine, like a general brand that was established when the war started. And with that brand, we represent Ukrainian wines all over the world. So it's like a recognized brand. Here in the UK, we named our company Ukrainian Wine Company UK. But when we take part in some big events, we just name ourselves as Wines of Ukraine. So it's much more easier. Yeah, and now there is a company in Estonia, so Estonian importer. They were very active when the war started. They were the first who started to buy a big amount of Ukrainian wines. Now we're selling wines there in Estonia and Baltic countries, in Sweden and Norway, so these Scandinavian countries. Yeah, and we finally got our first wines delivery in the UK this January. And as well, another one went to the US. So we have the US importer, which is called 𝐕NO-Ukraine. And I'm also asking all of you who has friends there to support them as
I was
well.
I was actually going to ask you about this because now you get the PR behind it, and it's not just you. There's a few of you, wine professionals who live in the UK and work in the UK, and you guys decided to actually make this official and enter the UK market. So just your experience about this, really, how you actually entered the UK market, and what were the challenges, what were the difficulties, and obviously, um, what is the feedback so far?
Actually, it's really an exciting journey. I call it like this. Yeah, me and so there, I would say 5, 6 of us, Ukrainians, who started this project, I would say. Last year, we took part, not we, but Wines of Ukraine took part in London Wine Fair. There were more than like 10 companies. They are representing their production, and we really had a very big interest. So many people came and asked where we can buy your wines, where we could, who is your importer. So there were we didn't find an importer there. There were some companies that wanted to buy this position or that position, but much more there were retailers, independents, merchants, people from restaurant sphere who asked from which importer we can buy your wines. So the idea came to us that we need to make our own importing company and to make our own portfolio, because for all these merchants and independents, it will be easier to order the wines just in one place instead of different. So we started that journey in August 2023. We applied for the license, for the bank accounts, for all this paperwork, and it took us 4 months really to launch the company. And when we were ready to bring our wines here into the UK, the problems at the Polish border started, because there were strikes with the Polish farmers who just closed all the borders because of agricultural production from Ukraine. So we lost some time because we wanted to start our sales before Christmas, but we couldn't really. And we also started to work with 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐷. So as you know, it's privately owned bonded warehouses. It's also a very difficult system for us, but anyway, it's good to start with them because they have all the fulfillment and so on. Yeah, but probably, who knows, we'll have our own warehouse soon. Yeah, so because there are advantages and disadvantages. Also, we started, and it was everything step by step. So in these 4 months, we did a very great job organizing different events and working with media very hard to make the promotion for Ukrainian wines. So everything started with this event in October, Ukrainian Wines of Ukraine trade and press tasting, where we had more than 130 people. We had Julia Harding, the editor of Jancis Robinson there. We had Lila O'Connor from Decanter. We had people from different magazines, platforms, masters of wine, influencers, experts, and people from the sphere who made the word of mouth to our wines. And for sure, before we brought our wines here to the UK, we already had some orders, which was very, very good. Yeah, and we made several articles in Evening Standard, in Drinks Business, The Buyer, Decanter. So
Many of them,
I guess the best ones. We also contacted with different guilds of sommelier, associations of sommelier, with the Institute of Master of Wines, and it was really, really cool that everyone wanted just to support us. And I know that that was like, big thank you really again to 𝐤𝐪𝐵𝐺𝐻, but she made that happen. And she helped us very much with that. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. And on that note, because from the starting point, obviously I started my own company many years ago, and I know the feeling how hard it is to get into certain places, and how hard it is to advertise yourself and the product, and just get the momentum. Obviously you and that's why I mentioned silver lining in the war, because obviously you get a bit of attention already, so you didn't need that initial PR push, but yet you still need to spend money on marketing and advertising. So and I'm curious about this, because from trade I'm an economist, and what I do is wine marketing, really. So and these things come together in terms of the funding of all these marketing efforts. Do you get any sort of help or any sort of grants from either from the UK side or Ukraine? Obviously, money is probably very scarce in the Ukrainian government, and they're probably not going to spend too much on these sort of things. Or do you guys just do it yourself, or how are you actually coping with this?
It's a good question and very sad actually, because Ukrainian government unfortunately doesn't support us anyhow. So they were going to, Wines of Ukraine were going to take part at Düsseldorf at Pro Wine in 2022. Because of the war, the ministry said no, we will not fund it. We have other tasks now, and it was really truth for that time. So Wines of Ukraine, just newly made organization, they started to search for funding, and they went to Pro Wine in 2022, I guess, with a small stand. I actually don't remember who helped them with funding that time. I know for sure that last year 2023 and this year Pro Wine was made with the help of USAID from the US. London Wine Fair actually made with the help of 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐚𝐢𝐧𝐞 and 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐚𝐢𝐧𝐞 wines, who supports Ukraine a lot. It was last year, and this year, London Wine Fair, the participation in it is made with the help of 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐚. It's the fund from Germany. They are very good professionals. Yeah, we are communicating with them, and they are really great. And that's all. So we don't have any funding. Unfortunately, we just starting to search for some grants, because it would be really very helpful to have some grant for developing our company and to make like a really good marketing and PR, because now we don't invest too much to this. And I'm really very grateful to all our partners, because they try to help us and they make us discounts for participating in events, and some articles for us are for free, and it's really very great support, really.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously need every support you can get at this stage, especially because you're starting up the company, and because the whole Ukrainian wine industry is obviously in a difficult situation, just generally, just like the country as well. But hopefully, fingers crossed, the war will be over at some point, and hopefully it's soon. If it's all settled and if it's all done, what are the regions and what are the grape varieties to look out for? Because what I understand is you have a fairly old system of wine regions, which comes from the Soviet era, which is officially at the moment the system of Ukrainian wine. And also in terms of grape varieties, as far as I looked, it's very much about international grape varieties. Are there any local grapes? Are there any indigenous grape varieties? Obviously, people in the wine industry heard about Separavi, for example, but they always associate it with Georgia, for example, maybe because of they had more press than Ukraine before. But are there any other grape varieties, or what are the regions which you think is going to come up more and more in conversations when things are settling?
So, as I told earlier, there are like now 5 official regions,
Fine,
wine
sorry.
regions of Ukraine. It's south regions, so it's Mykolaiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, and Zakarpattia on the west. But also there are some developing regions, which is Kyiv, Podillia, and also Kharkiv region. There are some wineries there, and we are just starting to make our own legislation and things like PDO and IGP, I guess, in Bessarabia and Odessa, they already made this lake PDO. So we're starting to do that. And so the legislation is on its progress stage for the wines, for the Ukrainian wines. And I just will show you, we have not so many local grape varieties. The history says we had plenty, but now they are not grown on the territory of Ukraine. So there are 2 grape varieties, which I know from Crimea. It's Kokur White and Kefalea. But now in Ukraine, we don't make any wines from them because they just grew there. Maybe sometime. And we have 4 main indigenous grape varieties, 3 white and 1 red. So for the whites, they are Citron Magaracha, which was invented in Magaracha Institute in Crimea. We don't have this wine in our portfolio yet, so hopefully we'll do. It's very nice, lemony, citrusy wine. We do have very interesting one, which is called actually 𝐷𝐤𝐫𝐴. It's very difficult to pronounce. Could you?
I wouldn't even try, to be honest. But yeah,
Oh, but please try. 𝐷𝐤𝐫𝐴.
𝐷𝐤𝐫𝐴. Okay.
Oh, you see, yeah, not bad. And
I'm
yes,
natural with languages. See, that's it. Yeah. Okay.
yes, it's a white grape variety, which was this one, and Odessa Black, the red one. I have it here from Villa Tinta. They were discovered. It was a cross, so the cross was made in the Institute Tairova in Odessa. So this is Chardonnay and Plavai. The cross, and for Odessa Black, another name is Ali Bernet, and the cross is Cabernet Sauvignon and Alicante Boucher.
Okay.
Yeah. And another one is our famous 𝐴𝐿𝐴. So this wine is from Baker's Winery, and it's written like that, 𝐴𝐿𝐴, which means fox's tail, because in 17th century, Turkish people were living on the territory of Odessa and Mykolaiv regions, and they started to plant this grape. And the bunch of the grape is in the shape of foxtail. So that's why we decided to leave the name of the grape and of the wine. It's a very nice, grassy and fruity and mineral wine.
How do you feel about the names? Obviously, people will understand Cabernet Sauvignon. People will understand Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and Pinot Blanc, and all the nice sounding French and Italian grapes, and but difficult grape varieties. And I'm only talking from experience, because when I started importing wines from Hungary to the UK, my biggest problems very often were people couldn't read or couldn't pronounce the grape varieties, and that was actually a real problem. And in many ways, for example, just to bring it back to Hungary a little bit, it's obvious why Furmint became the sort of flagship variety of Hungary, maybe because of Tokaj region, because of the sweet wine, but generally that is the wine which is very pronounceable and at the same time delivers quality. Do you think Ukrainian wines and the industry will suffer from this at all, or is it going to be okay for people? Bear in mind, not everybody as good as I am pronouncing Ukrainian grapes.
Actually, yeah, we faced a bit problem with the 𝐷𝐤𝐫𝐴 because it's difficult. And now one of the company's colonies, because they also grow it, they started to call it Odessa White. Like we have Odessa Black, so they started to call it Odessa White, but we'll see if it will be renamed officially. It will be much more easier, really. For 𝐴𝐿𝐴, it's not very difficult. So, and for Citron Magaracha, it's difficult.
The first part is okay. The second part is a bit difficult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but they somehow remember, I like this lemony wine.
Yeah,
Could I have it
yeah,
again?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, I guess it's a good point to think about.
Sorry, I suppose you could always play with labels. If the wineries create labels which are memorable, whether it's a big lemon on the label or something like that, people will remember it. I quite like the Odessa White because you already have an Odessa Red. Why not
Yeah.
have an Odessa White? And people know where it is. Unfortunate reasons why they know it, but they know where it is now. And that probably helps the marketing efforts, I assume.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And that's why I have chosen these bottles just to show you because everybody says, I want this wine with a sheep. So this winery, they have many sheep on the
Yeah,
territory. It's a big, big, like ethnical, historical complex.
yeah,
And for instance, this one is just the favorite one
yeah,
because these are the owners and winemakers of the winery
yeah,
biologist near Kiev. Yeah, and here also we do have like the winery belonging to tennis player from Zakarpattia. So he is here. And sure, this one with the flag with very
yeah,
interesting story because it was just a piece of tape when the war started and they didn't have any labels but needed to
yeah.
release the wines. Yeah, and also for sure these ones from Bakush with birds because they have like 5,000 of birds there. So yeah, we are trying to make these marks when we make some wine tastings and tell the
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
In general, I mean, I do remember where the Biologist Wine Company. I think their labels is absolutely fantastic. They really spot on. I think that's going to be hard not to remember. And the wines as well, great, and the story and everything. And I actually follow them on Instagram and
Oh,
everything.
cool.
So, but where do you see? Is it going to be more indigenous grape varieties, or is it going to be more the international varieties, which will sort of carry Ukrainian wine in the Western world? Where do you see this going?
It's not an easy question. We are still discovering it because, for instance, all the wines that I showed you, they are like more or less interesting. And many distributors, they ask us about indigenous grape varieties because they want to show something interesting or wine boutiques. Because this 𝐔𝐤𝐫𝐸, it's a Paravi, as you said, Georgian one, but it's very interesting to some of them to compare Georgian one and Ukrainian one because ours is a little bit different. As well as we have Timirossa, the only wine outside Piedmont. So it's also interesting to have it. Also, we have 𝐓𝐴, which is I don't know the only one I know, but it's grown in Ukraine and very good quality because even Timatkin, when it was like the country was annual event, he was shocked and he said, "Oh, you should try it, everyone, this amazing 𝐓𝐴." So we have some blends, interesting blends of red wines, but Ukrainian wines are not cheap. So the cheapest price on the shelf is 13 pounds. For this price, you can buy even Chablis, to my mind. So it's very difficult to convince a consumer that he or she should try the unknown wine from a known country. And the most expensive wine in our range is 60 pounds. But the average price is 20, 25, 30. Yeah, because we have some unusual wines, I would say. One of our Ukrainian companies, which is called Volgrad, they have another importer, which is 𝐷𝐤𝐫𝐸, and they produce understandable wines like Chardonnay. Probably you tasted them during our event.
I think so.
Yeah, they have Chardonnay, they have Merlot, so some understandable wines with very good prices. And they are in a very big demand as well. The big question is, should we have some cheaper, recognizable stuff from European grape varieties, or we should not?
Yeah, very, very tricky question because obviously you don't want to start in that sort of race where you're racing against, the cheaper end. It's going to be a very tough race. You need many bottles, let's put it this way, in order to get the price to the right point. And I'm not sure if that's your aim, but it's a very strategic decision what you have to make at some point, I believe. I think you are very much on the right track with the interesting wines because you are a small company, you are a young company. But if the demand is there, well, why not? I think, but it's you guys who have to make this massive decision at some point.
Yeah, we need to see, to research, and actually to take, some vital decisions.
I suppose you guys in the beginning of an exciting journey, and
Yeah, that's
I
true.
do hope it goes. I do hope it goes really well for you guys because I think the wines are amazing, and I assume everybody wants to help you as much as possible. So you have to take this opportunity and wave the flag, the Ukrainian flag, as much as possible in the wine industry as well. It's time for the wine industry to actually, recognize that Ukraine doesn't just make wine; they actually make really good wine. So
Yeah, thank you so much for emphasizing that because, our motto now is that just put one bottle on the shelf or on the menu, and you will help Ukraine and Ukrainian winemakers. But not just because of the war and to support, but just because the wine is very good. And one of our partners, Penny, she told me, "You're an amazing country. You are amazing guys, but I would never take your wine if it was not good."
yeah.
And she made already like 2 orders in 1 month, and it's a proof. Yeah.
I suppose so. Well, it was a bit of an eye opener for me when I went to that tasting. And I believe it was an eye opener for many other people in the wine industry, at least in the UK. And I hope this journey will continue and you guys do a very good job and you find the right partners to do it with. And hopefully you guys gonna, rock the UK wine world a little bit with Ukrainian wines. So good luck to you and thank you very much for joining me for this episode.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much for invitation. It was really exciting and I was happy to talk to you and to hear some feedback.
Yeah, thank you very much. And everybody who is still watching or who is still listening, please don't forget to subscribe, press the bell button, all the buttons down there, press the like button and share the story. I will put that book into the show notes as well, because I think that's quite interesting. And also going to put your contact details, the website into the show notes below. So if anyone wants to get in touch, obviously they can. I have a very empty glass now, so I'm gonna go and fill it up. But
Did I pour you?
yeah, let's try. Yeah, why not? The virtual pour. Anyway, thank you, Tania, for your time, and thank you guys for watching. And I see you guys later.
Thank you,
Bye.
Chava, very much. See you.